If we really truly want to understand global food security, we cannot just look at one thing. We need to look at prices, inflation, the country's import capacities, and several other factors to really truly know what is going on. So let's start first with the prices. Now, what we have seen over the last 1 year is that the prices for food and for fertilizer and for gas, they have substantially come down. But what's also true is that they are still at crisis level. We analyzed about 164 countries, and can you imagine that 73 of those have food inflation of more than 10%. There are 12 countries where food inflation is over 50%. And then there are again 3 countries where food inflation is more than 100%. The second thing which we must look at is what is happening to the import capacities of countries. And what we are seeing is that there are about 24 countries in the world where their currencies have depreciated by more than 15% in just 1 year. So what's the bottom line? If you're a poor country, your currency is depreciating, you have high debt, and if you happen to import your food, your fuel, and your fertilizer, you're in trouble. Now that's just the economic side. There are 2 other factors which we must consider. 1, conflict, and 2, the climate shocks. These are the other 2 big drivers which, if not addressed, continue to raise food insecurity. Today in the world, there are about 108 million people who are forcibly displaced, meaning they had to leave their homes because of a climate disaster or because of a conflict. We set a record in 2020. We assisted 116 million people. We again set a record in 2021, assisting 128 million people. And then last year, meaning 2022, we assisted 160 million people. While we are assisting more people, our market share is declining, meaning there are more people becoming food insecure, becoming hungrier than our ability to assist them. When we look at our funding side, 2022 was a record year for us. We received $14.1 billion, which allowed us to help 160 million people, but it also allowed us to stabilize the hunger levels in the world. We were able to avert famines. Today, we are looking at best at about $10 billion, which means that our funding gap is almost 60%. That means that we have to cut rations in more than half of our countries because we simply cannot afford to provide what people need. This is in Afghanistan, this is in Sudan, this is in Yemen, this is in Syria, this is in South Sudan, this is in DRC, and the list continues to grow. If your child is starving, you will do everything to save them. That's no different for poor people. So what we see is that on one stage, when assistance is cut, there will be destabilization. There will be displacement out of destitution. And when people move, when poor people move, where do you think they go? They go to other poor people. That puts additional burden on them. Sometimes we call them host communities, which are also struggling. And here comes another 100,000 people. Those consequences are in their place, but then they spread. Then they get exploited. This is how we see destabilization. This is how we see people being exploited by those who can when they don't have the assistance that they need. The Development Assistance Committee has been extremely generous. These are 30 richest countries in the world. They gave about $22 billion to help 216 million people around the world in their own countries. That comes to about $100 per person per year. The same DAC countries also gave $29 billion to help refugees and asylum seekers coming to their countries. That comes to about $4,800 per person per year. That is 46 times more than if they were assisted in their own countries. This is really important because most of the people we are talking about, they don't want to leave their homes. They leave homes because they have no choice, whether it is about conflict, whether it is about climate. So the bottom line is, please help people where they are because that's what they want. This is migration out of destitution, and that should be stopped at any cost.